And here we are. We're live. See what we can do. Use a ring light to brighten up when indoors. Oh, we got all enhance. Hi everybody, if you're just joining me. Hello, Mr. Ghost Eyes. How are you? I thought I'd go live. It's like late afternoon. I went live last night on YouTube and Rumble and Rockfin. And I tried to go live on TikTok at the same time, but at the moment they haven't enabled that yet. So I can't go live on TikTok at the same time as when I go live on YouTube, which is a shame because I really do enjoy TikTok and I enjoy talking to you all. Yeah, for some reason. Hi, Joe Thingy. Good afternoon to you. How is everybody? I'm just looking at all the little all the things I can do on here. Oh, I can. Oh, right, okay. And I can add all sorts of. All right, I can do. Oh, okay. So I can do the green screen behind me as well. All right, that's cool. So I can do pretty much everything I can do when you're editing the videos. All right. Okay. I haven't done too many of these, so I'm just getting used to the format. Yeah. Let's talk. What do you want to talk about? What's going on in the world? What do you want to talk about? Is that Matty Matt I can see? Is that you that's joined Matty Matt? It is. On a mission from God and she's pissed, he says. I went live for the first time today. It was a weird experience, says Joe Thingy. I remember the first time I went live. Oh, wow, that was a long time ago. Oh, wow, that was years ago. The first time I went live, you know, I'd done videos and just doing a video and putting a video out there on YouTube for somebody who's introverted like me. It's a scary thing, but then to go live, it's like, oh my, you're petrified the first time, aren't you? Because you're petrified you're going to say something wrong or it's going to be a disaster. And it's weird, I know. Weird experience. I had the same problem when I went live. Now it's water off a duck's back now, it's no problem. Although when you occasionally you look down and there's more viewers than normal. And it's like, oh, wow, there's hundreds of people watching. That can be scary sometimes. But other than that, you just carry on and do your own thing. What do you talk about? Anything you wanted to talk about, really? Like I say, ask me anything in the title. Talk about anything that's going on in the world at the moment. I know everybody's talking about Ukraine still. I come at that at a totally different angle than most people do. And certainly if you're watching mainstream media. Afternoon, Joe Broadway. To you too, sir. How are you? Yeah, the Ukraine, my dear old mom came round earlier and was asking me about it. And it's incredible listening to the media, the BBC, etc., and how they portray the Ukraine crisis, as they call it, and how actually I come at it. Joe Thingy's just said Ukraine is all about oil, I think. No, not quite. But you're on the right track. It's not oil, it's natural gas. And it's not all about natural gas. To understand what's going on in Ukraine, you've got to go back to 2013, 2014. And yeah, Matt Ruby says another 14-year-old boy lost his life at the hands of the IDF, the IOF yesterday. When will the West wake up? Yeah, Israel have killed another kid over in. I'll do a video about that, Matt. I saw that about 2 hours ago. I'll do a quick video about it tomorrow, if I get time. It's just horrific. Yeah, I was talking about Ukraine. To understand what's going on in Ukraine, you need to go back to 2013. Actually, you need to go back before that. But in 2013, 2014, that's where the BBC will pick the story up. They will say that there was a revolution. They called it, I think, the Maiden Revolution. And they miss off giant important facts when they're talking about this. For instance, for 10 years previous, the United States is ploughing billions, 5 billion into Ukraine. You know, trying to spread the seed of democracy is what they call it. Essentially what this is they're trying to spread the seeds of doubt in a country to create instability and to maybe sow the seeds of a coup. We've seen it elsewhere all around the world, in places in South America and in the Middle East, you know, you name it. We know the MO. We know the modus operandi. So billions are spent in the decade beforehand. And obviously the aim here from the West is to expand NATO as much as it possibly can towards Russia's borders. NATO gave Russia a solemn promise at the breakup of the Soviet Union that they wouldn't expand NATO eastwards towards Russia past the Berlin Wall. Since then, 14 countries in Europe have joined in 5 different expanses, 14 more countries, and they're pretty much on the border of Russia now. And Ukraine is obviously an ex-Soviet state that's on the border with Russia. They overthrew this country, propped up a coup. Now, we know, I can back this up because there's a tape. If you want to go and Google this, any of this, you can see that I'm backing it up with facts. There's a leaked tape online before the overthrow of the Ukrainian president, back then in 2014, of Victoria Nuland, who was the United States diplomat to Europe at that time, talking to the US ambassador to Ukraine. And they're carving up Ukraine and they're deciding who is going to be the next president and who's going to be the vice president, etc., and the mayor, etc. Weeks before this coup happened. And you can see there that this is what the intelligence services do. We've seen this elsewhere around the world. So they overthrew this dictator who was corrupt, and Russia reacts. Putin reacts. Putin reacts by annexing Crimea because, among other things, Crimea has a deep water port in the Black Sea. So tactically, from a defensive point of view, that's why he did it. Now, then you've got obviously areas on the east of Ukraine. When billions are going into a country that, you know, is suffering with corruption, it's going to the worst kinds of people. We see this elsewhere in the world. In Syria, they prop up the worst kinds of people. You know, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, depending on which side of fighting you're on. So you're propping up the worst kinds of people, and guess what? You know, the worst kind of president you could wish for came in after that coup happened. There's fighting on the east of Ukraine at the time. It was during this time that MH17 was downed, with all those kids and all those people on board, you know, shot down with what they said was a Russian rocket that was given to them by Russia or sold to them by Russia to these separatists. But We don't know how much truth there is in that. And even if you want to point that out, I can point you to a million instances where Raytheon or Boeing have been responsible in, blowing up kids in Yemen or elsewhere. So, we can't really point the fingers elsewhere there. So you've got then 6-7 years of, oh, by the way, this all happens under Obama, by the way. And obviously, the president before. So Obama appoints Biden, who was vice president at the time, to go in and sort of as his point man on Ukraine. One of the first things Biden does is puts his son, Hunter Biden. You've seen the pictures of him. He's not, the most, I would say, put together person, the most trustworthy person. He's obviously got a lot of problems. Puts him on the board of one of the energy companies in Ukraine. Ukraine are getting billions in transit payments from Russia in 2013, 2014, or the years previous. And Hunter Biden gets put on the board of Burisma, who are one of these countries, one of these energy companies in the Ukraine, and he gets paid $1 million a year. There are other nationals who are getting put. So, they've installed basically people on the board of these energy companies. The US has. So this is, you want to talk about interference in elections. Well, here's a gigantic one, and where you're going in there and just, carving the country up and taking all the profits for yourselves, which certainly seems like it anyway. So for 6-7 years, Ukraine's an absolute mess. Russia turns off the taps. The Ukraine stops getting their gas through Russia. They have to buy it, I think, through China now. And then, as a result of it, Russia doesn't want to pay Ukraine any transit payments, so they don't want the gas going through Ukraine. So they start construction on Nord Stream 2 in 2015 to try and go around Ukraine, bypassing those transit payments, bypassing a country that, that is anti-Western, or certainly, as far as Russia is concerned, a puppet of the West. And then Nord Stream 2 is about to open. They were laying the pipes to Germany in 2017 when Trump put sanctions on the countries that were actually the companies that were laying the pipes. So this has been coming to a head for quite some time, and there are lots of things at play here. And as far as you can look at it, at best, you can say, right, okay, this is six of one and half a dozen of the other, and Putin's just reacting. At worst, you can say, well, this is just another example of Western hegemony. We don't really care about the loss of life in Ukraine. We couldn't really give a shit. Because if we really, really gave a shit about loss of life in Ukraine, when I say we, I mean the UK, the US, the governments, Western governments, they don't really care. Because if they cared about the loss of life in Ukraine, they'd care about loss of life in Yemen. And without our backing, the war in Yemen couldn't happen. Without us arming the Saudis and maintaining the planes that we sell them. Without us doing that, within 2 weeks, there wouldn't be a plane in the sky over Yemen. But as it stands, it's, one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world, with pretty much half the country starving, 14 million people, the largest outbreak of cholera ever in history. Meanwhile, the Saudis are using planes that we've sold them and that we maintain, and bombs that we sell to them, to blow up the water towers. So when any politician comes out, like I heard Boris Johnson come out, oh, you got to think about how many people in Ukraine. He doesn't really care. We're propping up a dictator in Cameroon right now. It's an article in Declassified all about it. This is just one of the worst dictators, human rights abuses all over, and we're over there hand in glove with them. Matthew Matt talked about Israel. They killed another kid yesterday, 14-year-old. How many kids are they going to kill before the West, before the West actually takes notice? How many kids are they going to illegally without trial before the West stands up and takes notice? It's just we've got double standards. They would rather try. I mean, especially with America. You don't even give your own people healthcare. How can you afford to be waging war with countries around the world? You can't even afford to give your own people healthcare. Well, I mean, there's probably a reason for that. You spend over half of all your discretionary spending on what you laughingly call a defence budget. And I say laughingly because it doesn't include like stuff at home like Veterans Affairs or the nuclear program at home or anything like that. No. Pretty much it's all to fund 1,000 or so overseas bases, 800 of which you admit, and the rest are classified. They would rather create a war with Russia right now than deal with any problems that they've got at home. I've seen pictures, which bad enough over here in the UK. I've seen the videos in the US. They're just pretty much not a bridge that you can pass in downtown LA without, tent city they're calling it. And that's LA, Hollywood, And the way they're dealing with it is they're just throwing everybody's tent into a rubbish bin every once a morning and dealing with it like that, Deal with that stuff at home rather than before you go pointing fingers around the world at people doing things that aren't even 10% of what we've done around the world when you look at Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and Libya and... So yeah, that's pretty much what's happened with Ukraine as far as I can tell. You've got all of that going on, and obviously America are rattling the hornet's nest between Europe and Russia, because the one thing Germany wants is cheap gas, which is what it was going to get. So the US has obviously put the Nord Stream 2 dead in the water now, at least for the time being. So they've got their way. They pretty much forced him to do something. And now they're all talking about sanctions, which is ludicrous. We live in the era of Bitcoin. Sanctions don't mean a jack. They really don't. You can operate outside the central banking system now. Sanctions don't mean a goddamn thing. So, and when I say sanctions don't mean a damn thing, I mean they don't mean a damn thing to the people that they're meant to be targeting. It's only the poor people that actually suffer from sanctions. The rich people that you're targeting, that get around it in other ways. But the poor people who can't get the medicine that you're sanctioning, etc., then, But this is the way we act around the world. There you go. So that's my take on Ukraine. You'll see there at no point did I say invasion or annexation or Russian aggression or any of the buzzwords that you're hearing on the TV right now from the BBC or from MPs. Do you think that fracking a few years ago was to bring the price of oil down? No, fracking was a Ponzi scheme and always will be. And they're talking about starting it up again. It's a Ponzi scheme. I think like 99% of all fracking companies go bust. It may not be that high, but you see my point. NATO is the aggressor, says Harris Dean. I agree. NATO is the aggressor here. Especially if you want to look at our history, Libya and Afghanistan and, what was the other one? Czechoslovakia. I want to say Chechnya. Not Chechnya, that was Russia. USA has invaded 65 countries since World War II. That's 65. 65, is that right? Is that right? 65. 65. I don't think it's that many. It only shows like one of the 3 columns there. But yeah, there's quite a few. Military interventions since World War II. Yeah, you know what? 65. Could be. Really could. So Biden did that, did he? Yeah, okay. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Skylark. He did put his son on the board at Burisma. And if you don't think he did, then who do you think did? You know, he gets put point man, and then all of a sudden his son's on the board of Burisma, and then when Biden leaves, that $1 million salary gets halved within 2 years. And then when Biden starts thinking about running for re-election, all of a sudden, well, we know that there were emails that Biden's sort of backroom staff were worried about, like because Biden was running on an anti-corruption message. So that's when he left. I'm pretty sure that if Joe Biden hadn't run for president, Hunter Biden would still be getting $500,000 a year from that company, sitting on the board. You think Bojo sees the Ukraine as the perfect smokescreen to his ineptitude, says Matt Ruby. Matt, you're absolutely right. For the UK, it's, you know, it's anything to take the attention away from anything that's going on at home, because I don't think they have a clue what they're going to actually do about any of the problems that we've got over here. I don't think they have a clue. I don't think they have any answers to it other than to say, right, okay, we'll divert their attention away. You know, we've got so many huge problems over here. I've done videos about these parties that all the media keep talking about, these parties in lockdown, in number 10, etc. You know, why did it take a year for all this information to come out and these videos to come out? Why did it take that long? Where is this leak coming from? You know, and why is it now? Just as, you know, there's also all sorts of stuff going on around the world. You know, you got the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, you got Jeffrey Epstein, you got all sorts of problems for the elite, and they'd rather create a diversion halfway around the world and risk World War III than actually deal with anything. So I'm absolutely 100% on board. I mean, there's other reasons too, of course, but for sure, Boris Johnson will be like anything to take the focus off anything I'm doing or any problems that I've got back at home. What happened to Biden's laptop? Yeah, what happened to Biden's laptop? If you don't know that story, go and check out Glenn Greenwald's Substack on it. You know, they censored the New York Post article before the election, saying that, you know, it was Russian disinformation, and everything about it was true. But they called it Russian disinformation and silenced the article on Twitter, banned links to it and everything. It's quite incredible, you know, the way they'll use, the way the powers that be will use censorship as a weapon. You've seen it happen with the Canadian truckers. Now, wherever you stand on the Canadian truckers and whatever you think they are or who they're funding, etc., you've got to be wary that if you show up to a protest now in Canada, they can lock you out of your own money and starve you and freeze you to death because you can't afford to pay for fuel and food, etc. That's got to be a little bit worrying, hasn't it? If not, wow. Trump never took a wage. No. Should I tell you what Trump did do? He took about 19 patents in China and other places beforehand, opened up 19 countries. He took billions through his hotels, etc. Trump did quite well out of his presidency. Him not taking that pittance of a wage was just for publicity. He did quite well. Also believe Epstein Network was a joint CIA-DIA operation using Project Monarch. I don't know what Project Monarch is, Meso-ancient. I don't know what that is. I'll have to look up for that. Not forgetting Andrew, says Lisa Jane. Well, there you go. There's something that we, isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? So Prince Andrew is going to pay Virginia Giuffre 12 million quid. And everybody's like, okay, where's he getting the money from? Which is a fair point, because if he's getting it from mum, which, let's face it, he probably is doing, in a roundabout way, wherever it's coming from the bank of mum, let's face it. Well, what that's coming from is actually us. And when I say us, I mean, the people in this country, anybody who's paid tax into this country is funding it. And anybody the British Empire has stood on the neck of for the last hundreds of years has paid for it as well. So that's who's actually paying for the Virginia Giuffre's payoff. It's not Prince Andrew, it's us. That's a fair point, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree? So Prince Andrew faces no other charges. He pays £12 million to a girl that he says he's never met. I don't know about you, but I often do that. I often pay people I've never met millions of dollars. But let's paper over that and start thinking, okay, so who else then? Well, we know that Mr. Brunel, Jean-Luc Brunel, Epstein's sort of the person who was allegedly supplying Epstein with these young girls to be used in presumably a honey trap operation around the globe by intelligence services. Which ones, you tell me. He commits suicide in France in his jail cell, awaiting trial. He's in prison for 2 years and then all of a sudden kills himself. Okay. Kills himself. Epstein, he kills himself. He's suicided, which is an awful shock to him, I can imagine. And Ghislaine Maxwell, well, she's convicted and goes to prison. There may be a retrial, we don't know. Probably not. So she's gone to prison. But that's it. That's it. That's it. It's incredible to me that the media just don't ask questions any further than that. It's quite astounding, don't you think? So there was this guy who's working on behalf of intelligence services around the world, and I think it's accepted that is the case now. So there's Epstein. This is a big, it's a ring of the P word. I won't want to say it because otherwise. So they're catching these young girls, and the whole point of it is to catch these young girls or these rich, powerful people, to befriend them and to video them having, relations with girls that they do or don't know are underage. Maybe they spring it on them the next day. And before you know it, you're a billionaire owner of Victoria's Secret giving Mr. Epstein $40 million mansions for no reason whatsoever other than he's a good friend. So through all of this, which happened over a period of decades, going back maybe 50, 60 years, Mr. Epstein and his accomplices and these intelligence agencies creating this honey trap operation around the world and filming powerful men committing all sorts of atrocities with innocent young girls and boys, I suppose. And through it all, the only person who's going to see the inside of a jail cell and be sentenced for that crime is Epstein's girlfriend, a woman. All of the tapes that were confiscated from the FBI, we don't know what happened to them at all. We haven't heard anything at all, and nobody seems to want to ask a question. And all it cost them is 12 million quid of our money. And that's it. Finished. That's no more to see. Let's move along here. It's all done and dusted. Andrew was a bit sweaty after all. He did, yeah. And that's it. We're meant to swallow that. We're meant to just say, okay, then all right. Justice was served served during all that. Justice was served during all that. So they've got all those videos of all those powerful men doing all those despicable things, but they won't do anything about it. Meanwhile, in this country, in the UK, only 1 in 70 men who commit rape are convicted for it. 1 in 70? 1 in 70. You know, it's hard to disagree with women, isn't it, when they say they're not on an equal footing. It really is, when you think about it. And of course, while I say that only 1 in 70 rapes actually gets a conviction in this country, but while that is the case, the police pursue very little, to the point where women pretty much have given up. Half of them don't even report sexual assault now to the police. It's just become that ridiculous. They just don't do the job. Meanwhile, they will hype up and weaponize consensual relations between two people in Sweden to drive a journalist into hiding because they want to get their hands on him to extradite him because he proved that they were all war criminals. It's kind of it's soul destroying. It can be really depressing to see this playing out in front of you, and then to switch on the BBC and hear them say something back to you as if to say, yeah, don't believe your lying eyes. None of that is true. We are telling you the truth. We are. And you need to pay us for it. And if you don't, you're going to prison for non-payment of TV license. So you're lying and gaslighting me. No, you've got to pay us. It's a propaganda tax. Sorry, everybody's got to pay. And yet it's been reported that Fergie only received just over 3 million after their divorce. Wow. Monarch used honey traps and uses CIA torture manuals to make individuals have a dissociative. Okay. All right. Okay. Meso-ancient. Thanks for that. I'll look into it. Identity syndrome, and they are Manchurian candidates. Okay. The UK police are not fit for purpose anymore, says Lisa Jane. Yeah, I totally agree. I really do. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, people? We've talked about Ukraine. It's kind of that. It's kind of incredible that they're trying desperately. I'm fine, thank you, Mayfair Beats. How's your day? Yeah, it's fine. It's kind of incredible that they're expecting us all just to say, okay, all right then, that's that then, with the whole Epstein thing. All right, nothing more to see there then. I haven't heard a single outlet other than RT. I think I heard somebody on RT say it, but no other journalist outlet have I heard them say, where are the tapes? Yeah, if you speak to anybody on the street, that's what, any normal person, that's what they're asking. Where are these tapes of Epstein and these powerful men with young girls? But of course, if Epstein's working for intelligence, which is what we suspect, he's working for intelligence agencies. These intelligence agencies, well, what do you think they're going to find? They're investigating themselves. Even my dog knows that it's nonsense. What do you think would replace Boris? Who do you think would replace Boris if he goes, says Lisa Jane? I don't care. We don't have a political system that's fit for purpose. It doesn't matter who you put. Even if you put Jeremy Corbyn in, some people like Jeremy Corbyn. Even if you put him in, we don't have a political system that's functioning. It doesn't matter who gets in. We need a complete political revolution. We need to ditch the system that we've got because it's leading us into annihilation. It doesn't matter. Personally, I think Boris is, how they say, you get the leader you deserve. People were disgusted when Trump became president of America. Do you remember? I remember saying at the time, what? He's perfect. He's perfect. He's brash. He's a showman. Everything is a facade with him. It's all show. Nothing's truthful. He talks about business more than he cares about business above all else and profit. He's America. He was a perfect fit. You look at Boris, he's the same for us. He's perfect. He's a buffoon. And that's exactly what we've been like. We're just buffoons. We're led by absolute donkeys. We deserve what we've got. We deserve what we've got. We did have a chance a few years ago to vote in a leader who actually, I think was a good person, a decent person. I can't say that about any other leader that we've ever had in my lifetime. And he had his faults. And, I'm not a Corbyn stan. I'm not. I've criticised him more than anybody. In fact, Corbyn supporters hate me for criticising him, or they have done in the past. But look what happened. We let the media weaponise racism. We let the media we let the media convince vast amounts of people in this country that the most anti-racist MP in our lifetimes is actually a raving racist who hates the Jews. It's absolutely astounding. There's no nuance there at all. Nobody wants to have a conversation about Zionism. Nobody wants to talk about the 14-year-old killed and how many innocent children of Israel killed in the last year. Nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about Ukraine. It doesn't really matter if Boris goes. You're just going to get, you're going to get somebody more efficient, aren't you? But let's face it. Do you really think Boris is running the country right now? The guy couldn't run a bath. Men in grey suits, isn't it? Thank you, my favourites. That's very kind of you to say that. No way those tapes will see the light of day. Those tapes are a form of control, of course, and that's the whole point, isn't it? Isn't it, mate? Kahin DJ I6. That's the whole point. It's a form of control. It's a way of manipulating governments. It doesn't have to be governments. It can just be people in prominent positions, judges, academia, school, doctors, medicine. You put the right people in the right places, and if you've got the goods on the right people, you can you can manipulate these people to say whatever you want. And the people who are good people, they don't make it. They don't make it that high up. They get overlooked for the promotion. That's the way it works. It's a mafia state, basically, if you think about it. Love the shirt. Thank you, man. I haven't worn this in years. Do you think a lot of truths are labelled conspiracies to silence the questions? Yes, Matty Matt, I do, and I'll go even further than that. I happen to know that a lot of conspiracy is put out there on purpose by governments. The largest purveyor of misinformation in the world are governments, our Western. Russia does it as well as China, etc. as well. But I mean, we've got something called the 77th Brigade. We've got our own, trolls, our own intelligence people working in call centres who are controlling hundreds and hundreds of social media accounts. Putting misinformation or rather disinformation, because we're doing it on purpose, we know it's untrue, out there to sort of, create a fog so nobody knows what the truth is. The truth is in there somewhere, but you've put that much misinformation and disinformation out there, nobody knows what's right and wrong. And then all of a sudden you've got people believing different things, and then, you've got them arguing with each other. And all of a sudden it's not our fault for telling lies. No, it's everybody else's fault. They're all arguing with each other, and that's just perfect, isn't it? That's just perfect. If you can get people arguing with each other and so a hell of a lot of truths are labelled conspiracy, and a hell of a lot of misinformation and disinformation is put out there as conspiracy as well to hide the truth. And if I just pick one example, Russiagate. Russiagate was the conspiracy that Vladimir Putin installed Donald Trump as president. That's the conspiracy. If you still believe that, please go back and start watching my videos on YouTube. I've documented this over a period of years. I wrote a book about it. Putin did not elect or get Trump elected. Do you know who got Trump elected? Hillary goddamn Clinton and the Democrats. Because Hillary Clinton was the only person in America that could lose to Donald Trump, and they put her up anyway. They rigged the primary against the populist candidate, Bernie Sanders, who would have wiped the floor with Trump twice. They did it twice to him, the cuck, and he still corrals people into the Democratic Party like a good little Democrat he is. They rigged. We know this from WikiLeaks. They rigged that primary. If you want to look at election meddling in 2016, it was Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. Perhaps that's why Hillary Clinton's solicitor's now being, in trouble with the FBI for lying to them about, putting conspiracies out there that Trump Tower was communicating with a Russian bank. Remember, Trump was what they call impeached, remember, after he left office for going after Hunter Biden. Do you remember? That's what they impeached him for going after one of their own. Because he was on the phone to Ukraine trying to dig up dirt on what was going on over there, or what had gone on over there. That's why they impeached. So wicked, tangled web this is, and you're not going to get the truth if you're actually listening to the BBC or anything like that. I don't think there are enough people to make a stand anymore. That's an undercurrent. There's an undercurrent of police state. There's enough people out there, Lisa Jane. It's actually a scientific rule. I think is it 2% or 4%? You only need 2% or 4% of the population, I think it is, to decide we're going to actually take direct action, and you'll get changed. There is enough. It's just that, and we've got the lines of communication right now as well with the internet. We never had that before. This is why they're trying to silence people so much, and there's so much censorship. Yeah, there's enough people, just not enough people. You are correct. There's not enough people who understand it and who are awake to it. I think that's probably more accurate. Although you haven't got the characters to put all that info in, have you? Good point. There is an undercurrent of police state for sure. I've seen, I remember Black Lives Matter, those protests last year and the year before, in the wake of the George Floyd thing. There were lots of undercover police I saw back then. And I've also seen evidence of January the 6th as well. So there's going to be all sorts of agent provocateurs. I've seen them on my protests that I've been on as well. So, yeah, that's a good point. Broadgate 6 says, Brexit was the biggest propaganda campaign ever by a UK government in cahoots with the Russian government. Oh, wow, how do I unpack that? Brexit was a propaganda campaign, but it had nothing to do with Russia. And if you can point to any way Russia and misinformation and disinformation from Russia had any effect or outcome on the Brexit referendum, then please drop me a line to my email. But it needs to be proof. It needs to be documented evidence, because I can point you lots of evidence that we're messing about right now in Russia with the BBC and Reuters. It was a huge propaganda campaign, I agree there. Brexit was. Maybe we'll get more in depth on that. Although for us to squabble between us while behind the scenes money is made, says Wolverines. Exactly, mate. Divide and conquer. Again, Broadgate, propaganda got Trump elected. Racism. No, he used racism. He used it as a tool to get elected. The people responsible for Donald Trump being elected are the Democrats. They're the people who, the only reason they were horrified that Donald Trump was elected wasn't because Donald Trump does anything different to Joe Biden. He doesn't. All right. Do you remember when everybody was complaining with the Trump? Oh, he put those kids in cages. Well, Obama built those cages and Joe Biden kept them up. In fact, Joe Biden has deported more people than Trump did in his first year. All right. If you actually look foreign policy wise and home policy wise, Joe Biden is a better Trump than Trump. Do you know why? Because he doesn't come with the mean tweets. And that's the only reason, really, the establishment in America were so against Trump and came out against him. It was because he does everything presidents do. But he actually says, yeah, we're going to steal the oil. We're keeping the oil. And the Democrats say, you can't say that. Well, I mean, you do it as well. But he's honest, Biden is no different to Trump. The only difference is he doesn't come out with the craziness that Trump does. That's it. He's not honest like Trump is. Really. People didn't like the fact that Donald Trump put an ugly face on the ugly nation. He was the I remember my friend John White, it was a great quote he said about Trump the first time I ever saw him. He said, Donald Trump is the monster with the mask removed. And that was just boom. Nailed it. Donald Trump was the monster with the mask removed. Joe Biden's no different. Everything Joe Biden said he was going to do, he hasn't done. He hasn't cancelled student debt. You haven't got, Medicare, although he actually came out against Medicare for all. But, remember those $2,000 checks? What happened to them? You know? Everything he said he was going to do, he didn't do anything. Didn't do it. The only campaign promise he made was the one he made in private to his donors, which was things will not fundamentally change. It's not racism that got Trump elected. It's an electorate that is absolutely just. They've had enough of this whole two-party system. They've had enough of the Democrats. They just know it's not. They haven't got a choice. It's a false thing they've got. And they're going to keep doing it. Next time they'll put it's like, oh, you got to vote for this person. I know he's terrible, but otherwise you get the scary monster. Well, that's great, isn't it? If you can rig it so that's the case, then wow. Doesn't matter what people want, does it? But then, there's a study that says it is an oligarchy, not a democracy. Yeah, he's nowhere near as vocal as Trump. Yeah, that's the problem, Broadgate. Exactly. He's nowhere near as vocal. Trump put an ugly face on America. Greetings from Sweden. Hello, Sweden. Free Assange. I agree, Michael J. Bogan. Thank you for that. Free Assange. Yeah. Go check out my latest video, please, people. It's about an hour I've done now. I'm going to get off. But yeah, go check out my latest video. They're silent on Assange, and we need more voices. We need more voices in this fight. Because if the media actually did their job on this, and the media informed the public like they should be doing in their job, in their duties as the fourth estate, if they did that, Julian Assange's psychological torture would be over in 10 days. It's been 10 years now he's had his freedom taken away from him. And if they can take your freedom and your liberty away, if they can take freedom and liberty away from one person in this country for telling the truth, then none of you have freedom. None of you have liberty. You just have the illusion of it. All right. Do you think we'll ever become a cashless society? You know what, Lisa Jane? I can't remember the last time I had cash. I've got a few pounds there, but honestly, I've had it for weeks. I keep putting it in my pocket to give to homeless people. That's the only reason I've got the change now. Everything's chip and pin, isn't it? At least it is over here, not in America. They've only just got chip and pin on the subway in New York, I've heard. All right. Thanks very much, everybody, for all your support. I'm growing really nicely on this little app, and I'm really loving it. I go live on YouTube as well as Rockfin and Rumble. So go to the website, find me on Rockfin and YouTube, etc., and subscribe to me there. Sign up to my mailing list on my website, and I'll send you whenever I go live on YouTube. It's easier for me to go live on YouTube at the moment, as I was explaining at the beginning of this stream. I can't quite do it on Rockfin at the moment because I have to go live on multiple platforms. You'll see what I mean. Yeah, go and check me out there, and hopefully, yeah. If the link didn't work in my bio, I'll go and check that out, Lisa Jane. Thanks very much for sorting that out. All right. Thank you all. Support independent media, and I shall see you all soon. Take care.